All right, good morning to you. Welcome to the program this morning. This is the new dawn here on K24. It is a Tuesday, and of course, on Tuesdays nowadays seems to be Occupy Tuesdays. We have that and much more here on the program. We'll be covering quite a bit when it comes to the protests that are scheduled for today. And of course, the hashtag being Occupy JKIA. Kenyans have said they are going all the way to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in attempts to paralyze activities there, so that their message gets to be understood clearly by the head of state. This coming, of course, with the president saying he's not going to tolerate any more protests in the country that are meant to, in his own terms, to bring the country to a standstill and cause destruction. Of course, that is something that we are going to be focusing on today here on the program. And also, Parliament resumes sittings today. We'll also be having that particular conversation and just try to tell you exactly what is in their in-tray and what they expect to be doing as far as this is concerned. My name is Brian Amuai. Engage us on our socials at Amuai Brian. That is on X at K24 TV. We are also live on Facebook and on YouTube, and we do welcome your feedback on those particular social platforms. We'll be sampling some of it as we continue with the program this particular morning. Do tell us where you are watching us from and what you think about the stories we're running today, and also the conversation that we'll be having later on. Of course, about the resumption of Parliament today, and also the Occupy JKIA, or Occupy Tuesday, if you may like. Of course, with the protests that are currently happening in the country. We'll be sampling your feedback as we continue with the program this particular morning. Of course, we are all the way covering these particular events from this particular hour all the way to let. We have no idea what time that will be. But yes, as they continue to unfold, we'll be bringing you up to date with that. But first, we do want to take a look at what is making headlines this particular morning. And we begin. Young Kenyans have vowed to continue with their weekly demonstrations today to pile pressure on President William Ruto's administration, despite the head of state warning that he was not going to tolerate the protesters any further. Now, here, through social media hashtags, the protesters are daring to occupy the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport today as part of their strategy to exert pressure on the government amid calls from some leaders for youthful Kenyans to abandon demonstrations. This story was prepared by Timothy Simo.
Defiant and unwavering young Kenyans say they'll be back on the streets tomorrow.
Kesho kuna uwezekano mkubwa tutaweza kujitokeza na tutajitokeza kwa wingi.
Msimamo wetu ni straightforward. We want corruption free cabinet. We want watu ambao wako na ile inaitwa integrity katika kazi.
In social media posts that come in different shapes and color, protesters have vowed not to back down amid calls for suspension of the demonstrations from a section of both political and religious leaders. On Tuesday 23rd, they say it will be a show of defiance, courage and total rejection against what they claim is lack of goodwill from the government to address their issues, from corruption, accountability, abductions and arbitrary arrests, among other issues. But according to President William Ruto, who spoke in Bomet County over the weekend, he has ceded too much ground to accommodate Gen Zs. Ruto says enough is enough.
I want to promise you it's going to stop. Enough is enough.
His half-cabinet nominees that saw the return of former CSs received a backlash from young Kenyans who are threatening to occupy the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport tomorrow under the hashtag Occupy JKIA. Other hashtags that have been trending includes economic shutdown and enough is enough, that stemmed from President Ruto's warning to Gen Zs that his patience has been tested to the limit.
Walisema tusipitisha finance bill. Mimi nimewacha finance bill. Nikawaita wakanasema hawataki kuja kuzungumza na mimi. Wakaniambia niende huko kwa X. Mimi nikaenda kwa X. Wakatoroka huko hawakukuweko. Wakaniambia tuitishe mazungumzo. Nimeitisha mazungumzo, wamekataa. Nimewaambia wanaendelea kusema wao ni faceless, wao ni formless, sijui wako nini. Mimi nimewaambia sasa, my friends, you know, I have given a chance to everybody to say whatever they want. You know, it cannot continue like this.
There have been calls from different quarters urging young Kenyans to suspend demonstrations to allow government to implement some of the reforms they have been calling for.
And Kenya is going to become better as a result of this. But of course, we all plead that the young people, you have been heard. You just have to give the country an opportunity to be able to take those measures, because they can't happen overnight.
What we witnessed in Ongata Rongai 2-3 weeks ago, what we witnessed in Kitengela 2-3 days ago is something unacceptable. It is not about the Gen Z's demonstration. It is not about the good of this country that the Gen Z's were fostering. And therefore, we have patiently kept quiet, agonized, and we are now saying enough is enough.
It remains to be seen whether police will change tact tomorrow when dealing with protesters in the wake of President Ruto's warning. Timothy Simwa, K24 TV.
All right, of course, our coverage of that particular event started as of now. We'll be looking at that and bringing you up to date with what will be unfolding as we continue with the day. Now, families of 3 Kenyans who died during last week's protest in Kitengela have discredited police reports of the last moments of their loved ones. Now, as Milia Kisienya tells us, post-mortem results of the bodies identified by their family members show that many bear bullet wounds and injuries inflicted by blunt objects.
For over a month now, the anti-government protests have been the order of the day. And as protests persist, many lives continue to be lost. The government has remained mum over those that have died allegedly from police brutality. As questions linger on what next for families that have lost their loved ones. A new trend has risen of police reports having contradicting details of those that died during the protest.
Ikawa sasa tumeambiwa postmortem itafanyika Friday. Tulikalishwa hapa. Tukakalishwa. DCI wa Kitengela ni kwenda hivi, kwenda hivi, kwenda hivi, kwenda hivi.
This is the family of Shakila, one of the 3 families that received their post-mortem results today. Their loved one died during last week's demos in Kitengela.
Postmortem imefanywa, hao wenyewe wamedhibitisha kwamba kijana was not a known person vile iliandikwa na polisi. Polisi waliandika kwamba yeye kijana Shakil Ramsfeld Obienge alikufa accident akiwa Juja. Accident. Na ikaandikwa unknown. Ikaandikwa unknown. Even the vehicle that transported him, it's known. I don't want to say it through the cameras. That one now, I leave every matter to the police to do the investigation and finish up. The car that carried him is known. Mwenye kuendesha hiyo gari anajulikana na anasema ni unknown from Juja. Accident victim. Sisi tulikuja tukapata ni gunshot wound. Na imethibitishwa ni ukweli. Na tukaenda tukahakikisha penye alipigiwa risasi huko Kitengela. Penye alikuwa anajificha. All the videos are there. There's nothing to hide. And whoever shed the blood of my son, he was a hero. Whoever shed the blood of my son, that blood is flowing through the soil and they're stepping on it. Even those people are refusing the change. That change is going to come through them, through the soil. Hiyo maji, hiyo damu inaenda kuchanganyika na maji. Na wataikunywa. Na wataisikia vile iko.
A script not so different from this family that was at crossroads in accepting the results and was left for them just a cry for justice. Mwandeka died as a result of an injury caused by a blunt object.
Hatuwezi sema kabisa kama jamii tumeelewa vile tumepoteza mwanetu ama mtoto wetu. Kwa hivyo kile tu tunasema tunataka haki kwa ajili ya our cousin, tunataka haki kwa ajili yake. Hayo ndio tunaweza tukasema.
Na daktari wakati amewaelezea baada ya upasuaji amewaambia nini ambayo ilifanya Samuel akakufa?
Okay. Kulingana na daktari ametuambia Samuel alipigwa na kifaa mbutu kwa kichwa. Ndicho kimesababisha bleeding, ile imesababisha kifo chake.
And as families discredit police and post-mortem results, another family is hopeless, not sure where it will start after their son died from a gunshot wound. Latest reports from KNHCR indicate that a total of 50 Kenyans have died since the protests began, Over 400 left injured and over 50 still missing or abducted.
Wamepata alipigwa risasi ikatoka huku, ilipigwa huku ikatoka huku, na mpangilio yeyote bado hatuna kitu yeyote. Mimi ndio firstborn kwa boma, bwanangu pia aliaga. Mimi ndio tegemeo, wazazi ni wale wako nyumbani, wamelemewa kabisa. Hata mimi ndio wananililia nisiwache mtoto huku aoze huku. Sasa sina uwezo yeyote venye nitasaidia huyu mtoto afike nyumbani. Naomba serikali mnisaidie nipeleke mtoto nyumbani. Uchungu sana kama mtoto wetu mdogo 19 years amekufa na risasi.
Milia Kisenya, K24 TV.
All right, now in what seems to be about the Gen Z protest and to avoid further backlash by the youthful movement, members of parliament during a meeting with the Parliamentary Service Committee agreed to further cut on their budget. Now the cuts include foreign travels and infrastructural projects, focusing instead on current issues directly affecting Kenyan households. While a section of the parliamentarians agreed to the proposals made, others rejected them, citing constraints that will not only strain the PSC but also affect service delivery. Linda Koskei reports.
I'm willing to volunteer my travel budget.
In a rare show of compassion to Kenyans, members of parliament present during a meeting with the PSC displayed a new face.
We are willing to forego our travel. Let us stay in Kenya, all of us, and make sure that we prudently use of the resources that we have as a country.
Some, however, still want to travel, despite the country's financial constraints.
When you're also talking, don't come and tell us how you want us to cut domestic travel where our mileage is cut, and some of us don't come from near here.
As much as you're cutting foreign travels, please, clerk, remember me. I still want to travel outside this country to different jurisdictions to compare and see what I can do better. So as my colleagues are advocating for those cuts under the foreign travels, me, please, don't.
Previously, Parliament was notorious in refusing to cut down its budgets. But today,
no more procurement of buildings and rehabilitation. I've said many times, if we are just to suspend that particular item for 1 year, and this year is quite unique, this government will be able to save resources which can make us not borrow an additional pen.
Budgets and Appropriations Committee Chair Ndindi Nyoro said he's willing to give up his personal gains or money for meaningful projects.
We are voluntarily saying where it touches us as members, we are willing to sit. We are willing to sit travel, we are willing to sit going to hotels so that we can save some money to do much more pressing expenditures.
Kisumu County Women Representative Ruth Odinga warned the parliamentarians not to cripple PSC in the process just to appease the Gen Z.
I don't think we should be here to have some self-grandeur of trying to say so that we can be seen to be saying that we must cut our own personal travel and all that. That's not what we are talking about when we are saying we are going to cut and to be under austerity. It's more than that.
Parliament should consider putting on hold some of the infrastructural projects and focus on those that will directly impact households positively.
There should be no more purchase of any building or refurbishment because that is what the entire government is doing.
Linda Koskei, K24 TV.
Now, the rejected Finance Bill 2024 will formulate part of the agenda of the National Assembly as it resumes sitting from Tuesday, that is today. According to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, any members seeking to overturn a clause of the Finance Bill following President Ruto's rejection through a memorandum must get the nod of 2/3 of the House when consideration begins in the course of the week. At the same time, Wetangula has denied claims that the bill would have been law 14 days after rejection by the president. And as Martin Opio now tells us, Wetangula has been given a 7-day ultimatum to allow journalists to operate within the presence of Parliament or face court action by Busia Senator Okiya Omtatah.
After 3 weeks recess, members of parliament are set to return to the August House with activities filled in tray. This will be the first time since the parliament invasion by the Gen Z and the controversial approval of the Kenya Defence Forces to be on the streets to quell chaos. While on recess, President William Ruto rejected the finance bill following the deadly protest through a memorandum. As part of the order of business, the National Assembly will consider the memorandum before voting within the week. Any member wishing to revive any clause of the finance bill must garner the support of the 2/3 of the bill, an equivalent of 233 members of the House.
The President declined to assent to the finance bill 2024 and sent back with a memorandum indicating that he had rejected all the clauses of the bill. So that memorandum and rejection will also be part of the business of the House.
Members at the appropriate stage, according to Article 115 subsection 4A of the Constitution, absence of any amendment will signify agreement with His Excellency the President, which essentially means a total rejection of the bill.
Remember that under our standing orders, when the President sends a memorandum of that nature, any member who wants to overturn that memorandum or any provision therein must garner 2/3 of the members of the House.
Speaker Moses Wetangula has denied claims that the bill has since become law within 14 days of its rejection.
So we will be placing the memorandum before the House. This also addresses the issue that I've seen in the media, that the bill was going to be operational within 14 days of the rejection of the memorandum. That is not true, and we have no provision in law or under the Constitution for that. The bill is in limbo, is in purgatory, so to speak, awaiting the next vote on it in the House.
Also set for consideration is the supplementary budget, where the government has had to review its key priorities owing to a strain in finance after the finance bill failed to sail through.
The President also referred back the Division of Revenue Bill, which shares out our resources between the two levels of government. Given the shrinking purse that the government has, the President has indicated that then both levels of government must take some haircut on their revenue allocation.
On the table is also IEBC reconstitution, with Wetangula making assurances that IEBC selection panel will be gazetted by next week Tuesday, with the bodies mandated to second names of the panel set to do so by Friday this week. The Parliamentary Service Commission is expected to give 2 names, Law Society of Kenya 1 name, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya 1 name, as well as Political Parties License Committee will give 3 names as nominees, while the Inter-Religious Council will provide 2 names. The panel will then invite applicants for the position, which have remained vacant since last year, January. The Speaker is further denying allegations that the media has been barred from accessing Parliament buildings, which Wetangula says was necessitated by damages caused by protesters during the anti-finance bill Parliament invasion.
The only issue is that following the extensive damage that Parliament suffered, we have, as management of Parliament, allocated media that covers Parliament, space across the road at the Red Cross building, but we will be able to facilitate live coverage as we have always done.
However, Busia Senator Okiya Omtata is not having it and terms the move by Parliament as unconstitutional and is threatening to head to court within 7 days.
The media in Parliament. These people think they can reverse this country are wasting their time. And if this thing is not lifted within the next 7 days, I'm going to take judicial action to have that circular here. It was issued by Speaker Wetangula. And Wetangula should not think that this country belongs to him. He cannot just wake up and issue sanctions that cannot apply. So it's very shameful that I've had to hold a press conference.
As the Parliamentary Service Commission asserts that 100 million shillings will be used to renovate Parliament buildings, which was severely damaged, Wetangula says that 94 million shillings will be used, but the cost will not be passed to the taxpayer.
We had insurance cover, so the insurance is taking steps. Work has started in restoring the damaged buildings and the damaged furniture, TVs and other equipment within the precincts of Parliament.
The media will for the meantime have to operate outside Parliament. Wetangula also assures Kenyans that all CSs named for reappointment will have to be vetted. Martin Opio, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Now, the National Treasury has revised its budget to 3.87 trillion from 3.992 trillion, with the ordinary revenue targets reduced to 2.6 trillion, I beg your pardon, from the initial 2.9 trillion in the financial year 2024-2025. Now, however, the National Treasury has now warned that the ongoing Gen Z demonstrations, should they persist, they will take a heavy toll on the economy, risking a further revision of the budget due to revenue shortfalls.
With youthful Kenyans set to protest on Tuesday in various parts of the country, the National Treasury is now worried of the trend, which they warn is taking a heavy toll on the economy.
Daily cost of the various shutdowns remains high, and later on, I'm sure the numbers will feed into the economy and we'll start feeling the pressure. Let me discount immediately that the airport, Jomo Kenyatta Airport, is not on sale.
If we can actually do away with the police beating demonstrators and the goons that are somehow infused, why? Because Ugandans will come here, Nigerians will come to see our Gen Zs are actually demonstrating with style, you know. They are good, they dance, they do no peaceful, no distraction, so we can actually use it to bring more tourists. So just be nice to the Gen Z.
Appearing before the Budget Committee of the National Assembly, Acting Treasury Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has now given the revised budget figures of the ongoing financial year 2024-2025.
Impact of the withdrawal of the finance bill is extremely heavy on us as a country. We have really cut to the bone.
The total budget will now be 3.87 trillion after being slashed from the initial 3.992 trillion, with the recurrent expenditure set to be 2.8 trillion, while the development budget will be 579.2 billion.
In the current scenario where we have the youth uprising and that has even cost us to withdraw the finance bill and etc., I have not seen anything in this budget that reflects that the government is trying to address the concerns of the youths.
On the current development project you are projecting to do in this financial year, are they going to stimulate the economy so that the economy can grow, or there are some are political, which are going to be white elephant, but the public money is going to be spent?
The revenue projections, including appropriations in aid, has been revised to 3.057 trillion, being 16.9% of the GDP. This figure comprises of ordinary revenue, which has been reduced from 2.9 trillion to 2.631 trillion, which is 14.6%, while the ministerial appropriation in aid will stand at 425.9 billion.
Ordinary revenue of 2.6 trillion. It means we are spending 45% of the revenues we get from KRA to just pay interest for loans that we have taken.
Moving around and giving the impression that these debts can be written off. They will not be written off. We have to pay.
The fiscal deficit has been revised to 761 billion, which is 4.2% of the GDP, which will be financed by 356.4 billion borrowed externally and 404.6 billion borrowed domestically, which is likely to increase interest rates, hence straining access to credit by MSMEs.
You need to have the IMF on your side and the World Bank on your side for you to have a hearing from your creditors.
The Budget Committee is on Tuesday or Wednesday this week expected to table a report on the Supplementary Budget 1 of financial year 2024-2025 after Parliament resumes from a month-long recess. Joel Chacha, K24 TV, Nairobi.
All right, we do want to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at what you're waking up to as far as the newspapers are concerned. And of course, I have my guests already here in studio. Wanjigo Thiga, thank you so much for making time this morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are
You're having a wonderful morning.
Yes.
Are you occupying JKI today?
On the road, I've already seen people have started the job. Yeah.
All right, and also, Honorable Session, thank you so much for making time for this conversation this morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes.
All right, how about today? Occupying JKA, or we are here with you in studio?
No, there should be law and order.
There should be law and order.
And all demonstrations have been proclaimed as illegal by the police, so therefore
we'll get into the details of that as we continue the program tonight. Of course, not tonight, this morning, of course. That's what happens when you do a morning show and an evening show. My name is Brian Amwai, as always. We do want to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at the dailies and also get into a conversation later on about Parliament resuming business today. What's in for them this particular day? Of course, a break.
Sensodyne gives you long